Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Knee Jerk Reaction, Eno on the Lions, as we take a look at the latest Detroit Lions game. This is a way to cross-promote the Knee Jerks podcast, which you can listen to via Stitcher, iTunes, and Blog Talk Radio, or simply go to thekneejerks.net and be hooked up that way. We'll be with you every other week. Our next new episode of the Knee Jerks will be recorded on Sunday night, October the 8th, which will be ready for download on Monday, October the 9th. So to check that out, next episode of the Knee Jerks. We'll have a full slate. I'm sure we'll talk about, of course, Lions. We'll probably be doing a little bit of postscript on the Tigers. We'll probably look at the MLB postseason and maybe some college football. There's all sorts of things to talk about. Check us out at the Knee Jerks. But right now, we're going to be talking about the Lions. 14-7 win over the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. I'm going to go ahead and pre-apologize to you all because our dog is out here with me, and he gets a little bit excited, especially after the Lions win. So if you hear him barking, it's because he's happy. Lions, this was one of those old-time, old-school NFC Central. Remember those days, the NFC Central, the black and blue division? That's what this game reminded me of. Lions, Vikings, not a lot of scoring, lots of defense. Not a lot of offense, and hence the final score 14-7. But when if you're gonna be a playoff team or win a division, you're gonna have to win football games on Sunday afternoons where your offense doesn't do a whole lot, and that's exactly what the Lions did today. It wasn't really very pretty. They had I think it was 251 yards of total offense. Matthew Stafford was not vintage Matthew Stafford, but they did have the running game going, and they were able to slug out some yards that way. And get enough done to get the W. But these are the kinds of games you're going to have to win. You can't. I think Lions fans have been, kind of crying for a victory like this, where the score's low, defenses kind of take over. You don't have to score 35 points to win a football game. You get some turnovers. You create some havoc, and you make things difficult for the other team's offense. And I think that's the kind of football game the Lions fans would like to see their team win more of, because it's hard to get into a shootout and do that week after week after week and win lots of football games that way. You're going to have days where it's a struggle offensively, and you're going to have to win games like this, like 14-7, and that's what the Lions did. I want to talk about first the horrible injury that was suffered by Minnesota's rookie sensation running back Dalvin Cook, who went down about 5 minutes into the third quarter with what is being feared as a complete tear of the ACL, and that's a devastating loss for the Vikings and for pro football, frankly. I hate to see any young, promising player, especially a skill position player like Cook, go down like that. Certainly, if that's the case, if it is a tear in the ACL, he's done for the season, obviously. He was off to a great start for the Vikings. And in the game today against the Lions, he was off to a 13-carry, 66-yard start before he fumbled on the play where he got hurt. And so my thoughts go out to Cook and the Vikings organization, because that's a big-time loss for them, not only from a on the field standpoint, but whenever you have a young rookie kid that's kind of turning the league on, especially getting over the Vikings organization, trying to move past the Adrian Peterson fiasco, that's a tough loss. So I want to just kind of mention that. I mentioned at the top of the discussion Matthew Stafford, not vintage Stafford. I thought that he came out very inaccurate. I thought he was a little tight almost, just not himself. The Lions did not, were not able to move the ball initially with through the air. I think that was largely due to Stafford being a little bit just off his game, frankly. I mean, he ended up 19 for 31. I think it was 219 yards, I believe. No touchdown passes, although he did convert a two-point conversion via the pass, but just wasn't. Again, this is what I was talking about. These are going to be games where your star quarterback is off, and he's not going to put 30 points on the board, and he's not going to throw 4 touchdown passes, and he's not going to light up the scoreboard, and so you're gonna. That's going to happen in the NFL. So how do you react? Well, you come up with a big defensive effort, which we'll talk about in a second, and you win low-scoring football games. Obviously, what what did work for the Lions offensively for most of the game was the running attack. It looked a lot like Ameer Abdullah was going to be the first Lions running back to be a 100-yard rusher in a game since 2013. It was off to a great start, and he looked like he was going to shatter the 100-yard mark, but ended up with 20 carries for 94 yards, which obviously is a very good average. He had I think it was a 29-yard burst in the first half, which kind of got a drive going there. And he made a couple really nice cuts. He showed some he was elusive. There were a couple runs where it looked like it was almost Barry Sanders-ish, where it looked like there was nothing there, and he was able to juke his way and make something out of nothing. And the touchdown run that he had, which was very impressive. He kind of, made himself small, somehow squeezed through a number of players and emerged and dove in for a touchdown that was, of course, had to be confirmed by review. Good review by Jim Caldwell, because they initially ruled it not a touchdown. And Caldwell threw the red flag, and they looked at it again. And sure enough, as confirmed by Dean Blandino and the Fox crew, the former NFL official in the booth, who's now working the broadcast, that yes, Abdullah did manage to get the football to break the plane of the goal line before his body touched the ground. So good job by him. It was a great effort. And the only touchdown the Lions scored actually in the game today. So hats off to him. Last year, Marvin Jones caught up to a really good start and then kind of fizzled. And I've noticed this year, the receiver for the Lions, I noticed that he's been a little more consistent. He hasn't been great in any of the games so far necessarily, but his presence has been felt. He's had at least one, I think, to me, a big play reception in every game so far, and he did it again today. He hooked up with Stafford, and I think it was in the first, right at the end of the first quarter. Lions had 100 yards offense in the first quarter, by the way, but I think 35 of it came on that pass that I was talking about from Stafford to Jones. A really good effort, good pass, good catch. Athletic ability was showing there. But Marvin Jones, I thought maybe he peaked too early last year, got out of the gate red hot, and then kind of petered out. This year it's been a little bit more consistent, hasn't gone crazy, he hasn't been putting up eye-popping numbers in any given game, but he's been steady, and that's what the Lions need out of the receiving core. Is it can't always be Golden Tate, it can't always be the other Jones, C.J. Jones, it can't always be Ebron, it can't always be Theo Riddick, even on the backfield. They're going to have to spread it around a little bit. Real quick about the Lions' passing attack, when I mentioned Ebron, it wasn't Ebron today. It was the other tight end, Fells, who I thought was he was terrific. Matthew Stafford went to Fells, I think, 3 times in the first quarter. And Michael Roberts, the other tight end, got his first NFL catch on a drive where the Lions got just before the Abdullah touchdown. Starting to bring some other tight ends into the mix. Ebron, I'm not sure if that's a case of not trusting Ebron right now. We were commenting last week about his dropsies. But regardless, it's good to see other tight ends get in the mix who can catch the football, and Fells did that exactly today. And he got some, these were kind of under the radar catches that won't jump out at you in the box score, and maybe you even forgot about by the time the game ended. But he made some catches and converted some first downs where at times the Lions really needed to move the football. I mean, they weren't necessarily drives that resulted in points, but they were drives that kind of flipped field position around a little bit, and that's important. Sometimes that's almost as important at times than getting points, is to flip the field position if your offense is struggling and let your defense do its thing. So let's talk about the defense. Let's do that. I got to tell you, last year we all know Kerry Hyder kind of came out of nowhere on the defensive line. Had a great year, 8.5 sacks. It seemed like he was always around the football. Whenever there was a fumble, he was there. He was causing fumbles. He was recovering fumbles. And when he went down early in the exhibition season, a lot of observers, including myself, said, well, will there be somebody else on the defensive line, an unheralded guy perhaps, a young guy or somebody that just you don't expect? Will somebody be the 2017 version of Kerry Hyder? In other words, will somebody jump to the fore that you weren't necessarily counting on when training camp began, or even when the regular season began? Well, I think that Anthony Zettel is that guy. I mean, he's a Michigan kid actually. He's from Tawas City, and boy, I tell you, he played real well in the exhibition season, but once the regular season began, he's continued to play real well. He's getting sacks. He had 2 more today. He recovered a fumble. He's a kind of a guy that, just like Hyder last year, he always seems to be around the football. He always seems to be there. Whether it's a fumble that needs to be recovered, whether it's a sack, whether it's, he's a big play, a tackle for loss. He just seems to be there, and he's got that knack so far of being present at the right time, right place at the right time, and he's really thriving on that right now. Looks like he's having a lot of fun out there. So he kind of looks like he might be this year's Kerry Hyder, the guy that kind of comes out of the blue and does some nice things on the defensive line. And they need that because the defensive line, the veteran guys aren't really getting it done. Ziggy Ansah, Haloti Nada, not a lot of production out of those guys. A little bit disappointed in that. So it's good to see a young kid like Zettel come out of the blue and come out of the Honolulu blue and do as well as he has. So I really liked his performance. Overall, though, defensively, the Lions, once again, 3 more takeaways. They did not turn the ball over themselves, so they were +3. I believe they're I want to say they're plus 15 or 16 this season already. I apologize if that number's not right. I should have checked that before I went on the air. I apologize. But the Lions are certainly way ahead in the plus column right now. It's one of the reasons why they're 3-1. 3 more turnovers today, all fumbles, and every one of them were, really momentum killers for the Vikings. We mentioned earlier, of course, the one where Cook, the fumble where Cook got hurt. But the last drive of the game, where the Vikings, albeit with no timeouts, got the ball back with just under 2 minutes to go. We've seen teams score in those situations. It wasn't out of the realm of possibility. You never know. And Glover Quinn, who to me is your first quarter Pro Bowl safety, caused a fumble, and Tahir Whitehead recovered. And Whitehead, by the way, I think that was his second fumble recovery this season. He seems to be a guy that's in the right place at the right time, too. And game over, essentially. So Glover Quinn, the secondary, Slay, Nevin Lawson played well. Miles Killebrew, who I just can't get enough of. I mean, all of that. I love watching that kid play. He's having a lot of fun back there. The secondary is really shaping up to be I think, the Lions' strong point on defense. It really is. Obviously the thinner linebacker, although I did like how well Nick Bellora played in the stead of Jared Davis, who continues to remain out with a concussion situation. They really missed Davis a lot in the game against Atlanta, but Bellora really came in and played real well in the game today, and the Lions didn't miss Davis nearly as much as they did last week. But again, 7 points on the board, and you really can't ask for much more than that. They weren't gashed, although Cook had a good game before he went down, but the Lions weren't giving him a lot of big plays. They were getting off the field on third down, and they were doing some good things defensively throughout the game. And I think that was one of the reasons why they were able to come out of here with a victory. A big win on the road. When you go on the road within the division with a team that was also up to a 2-1 start in this case, the Vikings, it's a big win. So that's hats off to the Lions on that one. Special teams, not much to talk about. Matt Prater missed a field goal, which is unusual. Darn near 60 yards, though, so I'm not going to go crazy over that. He made his other 2 attempts. So there wasn't much going on in the return game. There was a nice punting job by Jeff Locke, the punter, ex-Viking actually, who's replacing Sam Martin now. He had a good leg today and dropped one right around the 5-yard line. Good effort from him today. So special teams, kind of less is more today. There wasn't a lot to go crazy about. From the return game, there was a blown coverage on one kickoff return where the Vikings got it out to about the 40. Other than that, though, nothing much to complain about from a special team standpoint, and I'm not going to go crazy on Prater missing a 59-yarder. Lion King of the Week. This is where I kind of pick a player who I think exemplifies being a Lion, and it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody has eye-opening stats. But in this case, I am going to go with the guy who was very present, and that's Anthony Zettel. Zettel, I think, is I'm excited about this guy because he seems to have a nose for the football. He creates havoc. He gets sacks. Now, maybe as the year goes on, we'll see that kind of level off a little bit once the league starts to realize who this kid is. But it didn't really level off with Kerry Hyder Jr. last year. I mean, he continued to have a good, game. It seemed like every week, and his end of the year stats reflected that. And he had a nose for the football all year long. There were maybe 2 or 3 games in the middle of the year where Hyder was a little bit quiet, but other than that, he was pretty much a force the entire season. So I like what I'm seeing out of Zettel. So I'm going to give the Lion King of the Week this week to Anthony Zettel. So congratulations to him. Next week, the Lions take on the Carolina Panthers in Detroit. That's not going to be easy. Panthers beat the Patriots, no less, in New England, 33-30 on a last-second field goal. So, you never know when Cam Newton comes to town what could happen. This is a good test for the Lions defense. So it should be a good game next week. Remember to listen to the Knee Jerks on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, and Stitcher, or just go to thekneejerks.net to check us out. Next new episode will be recorded next Sunday, October the 8th, ready for download on Monday, October the 9th. So check us out there, and we hope to have you join us. And I don't think I'm talking out of school here. Big Al and I are going to try to take the Knee Jerks podcast in a video direction. So you may be seeing us rather than just hearing us next week on the Knee Jerks. We're thinking about doing a video version of the podcast, complete with split screen and everything. So you'll see Al, you'll see me, and we're going to try that. We're going to put it up on our YouTube channel. By the way, we do have a YouTube channel on the Knee Jerks. Just go to YouTube and type in the Knee Jerks, and there we should be. And that's where this video will be later on this evening. So thanks for joining me on a Sunday evening. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll catch you next week as the Lions take on the Panthers from Detroit. Take care. Bye-bye.